Well, welcome everyone. We're really glad that you're here. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes for folks to join in and then we'll get started. So have a seat, grab a thing of popcorn, and we will get started here in a few minutes. Alrighty. I don't know if you're as excited as I am, but let's go ahead and dive in. Thank you for everyone for joining us, where service meets serenity, how the Galgorm Collection drives revenue without disrupting the luxury experience. My name is Jason Anderson, and I'm on the customer success team here at Silverware POS, and I've been a part of the Silverware team for almost 10 years, and I'll be guiding today's conversation. Before we get started, just a couple quick notes for everyone. We'll leave time at the end for a Q&A, so feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A panel as we go along. And this session is definitely being recorded, so you'll receive that recording later today. Now, where service meets serenity sounds great, but in reality, it's an operational challenge. Luxury hospitality teams are constantly balancing growth with experience, finding ways to increase revenue without disrupting the atmosphere for their guests. At the Galgorm Collection, this balance is exceptionally important. How do you drive food and beverage spend when your guests are there to relax, unplug, and not be interrupted? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today. I'm joined here by the wonderful Miss Elaine Kelly, the Group Projects and Systems Manager at the Galgorm Collection, who will share how their team has rethought service across their properties. From in-room dining to spa-side ordering, we'll talk about how mobile ordering can act as a seamless extension of service, enhancing the guest experience while unlocking incremental revenue. If you're thinking about how to deliver more without adding friction, this should be a really valuable conversation for you. All right. Can you give us a quick overview of how the Galgorm collection was created and how it makes them unique, Miss Kelly?
Hi, thanks, Jason. So Galgorm Collection, we have a group of four hotels, all located in Northern Ireland, with a collective of about 400, over 400 rooms, which includes standard guest rooms within the hotels. We have different types of accommodations across those, some cottages, lodging properties, shepherd's huts, forest dens, log cabins. And we have spa facilities in each. We have dining, multiple dining outlets in some. We have wedding business, heavy day and overnight usage, and some golf at a couple of those properties as well.
Wonderful. Now, I've been privileged enough to actually experience the Galgorm experience, but how would you describe some of the guest mindsets that they have when they arrive at your locations?
Um, Whilst we do have a lot of different facilities at the properties, they certainly come mostly for the spa facilities, particularly around like our flagship property would be Galgorm Resort itself. The spa there is probably one of the biggest in Ireland. Um, and we have lots of spa experiences. A lot of it is outdoor. The image you can see there is the river at the side of the spa. And we have lots of like hot tub bathing experiences outdoor. We don't always have the weather for it, but people seem to enjoy it all the same. Um, People come to celebrate a lot of the time. They're there for anniversary or birthday celebrations, and they really do spend a lot of time in our spa. So it's not just 60, 90 minutes. Some people can really spend there all day. So there's a lot of like um guests who are there to switch off and relax and also spend time with family and friends.
Definitely. I can say I don't think I've ever seen anyone without a smile at any of your
Yeah.
properties.
Or a
Oh,
drink.
or a drink. What were you looking for from a technology standpoint across your properties?
We really when we first were looking for sort of a new EPOS, we knew that we were a growing company. In particular, like I've been at Galgorm for almost 15 years and we've never not been extending the property there. We're quite fortunate to have a lot of land around into the forest. So we needed to have something that was going to be scalable for us and something that we could operate quite easily whenever we tried to add on new properties or new revenue centers. We needed consistency. We needed it to be easy for our guests to be able to either interact with from their own side and for our own staff. The user interface had to be good. And we obviously needed a good integration with property management system to help with operations.
Gotcha. Now, what about a tension between experience and revenue? When did you start to notice that?
So I think it was probably whenever we started to expand the spa areas, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, we put in some private spa experiences. The hotel became a lot busier, and one of the friction points for our guests were that they couldn't get into their favorite hot tub that they wanted to, or the riverside pool was always really busy and it just felt like a bit of a free for all and people were spending lots of time. So we created a lot of experiences that were privately bookable so that you could have an experience for like 60 minutes with maybe additional like drinks or sweet treats or something like that. This one that you can see here is at the Rabbit Hotel in particular, and it is lakeside. So it's just like a wood-fired, most of the time, style hot tub. And we have a lot of those across our properties as well. So the guest gets taken down to their tub for their allocated time that they've either booked or it's been part of their overnight experience or their overnight stay. And during that 60 minutes, they've probably finished the drink that they got as part of their package or their bottle of Prosecco. Our staff don't really want to like peek around into that sort of semi-secluded either riverside area or lakeside area to see if they want another drink, or maybe
Mhm.
they go at the wrong time and the guests are still drinking their drink, but 20 minutes later they do want a drink. So we just find that there was sort of like lost revenue in those empty spaces where there are people but there are no staff. So that was the challenge that we were sort of facing, and we as much as it was revenue loss, it was also the guest experience too, because we didn't want them to be sitting thinking that they had been forgotten about if they wanted something.
Definitely. And I can see where that would show up as a very big missed opportunity in
Mm,
potential revenue, uh, potential guest experiences, as you mentioned. So finding that perfect moment for a server to either go check in on them
hmm
or um, when you could refill their glass. So I'm
Yeah,
assuming the first question would be is how can we find out that they need something without interrupting that experience, you know?
yeah. hmm
So, when did you guys decide to start making a shift in your service and start to think about how can we accomplish this?
Um, I think I think sort of as I said, as the spa grew and we seen like the opportunities through silverware features expanding, we had sort of a bit of insight into what was possible for the guests to self-order, if you like.
Yeah,
Um, like in that last slide, sorry, just that thermal bath slide, was is another example. That's the Roman baths in the spa at the Rabbit Hotel. And literally in the top left-hand corner is the bar, but where those girls are sitting is probably prime retail spot in a busy spa, and they were like, I don't want to give up my seat. If someone else comes in here, I go and get a drink and come back, and someone else has that. But that's the spot that they wanted to sit in. So, um, yeah, as I said, when Silverware decided, or when Silverware presented that they had sort of new features and new tools where guests could self-order, that's when we decided to trial those out and phase those in to see if we could make more opportunities for more revenue.
Definitely. So tell me about your experience rolling this out at the first property. What surprised you? What approach did you guys have with rolling this out? And maybe how did that approach shift as you're rolling it out and say,
Mhm.
oh, I see where this could go?
Yeah. So we started off with those individual spa experiences. As our business has grown, we have added a lot more of those. We had to work with the Silverware team and the Maestro team quite a lot to make sure that we were building um, the Guest X platform in such a way that we could allow our guests, if they were staying in the hotel, to actually post their bill back to their room if they were using the Guest X solution. Um, they were able to like order from where they're seated in their tub or in their pool. And as long as they could match their room number and their email address against that, then we would allow them to charge the bill to their room. Um, we also worked with the Stripe interface for the payment gateway. So setting that up to enable for Apple Pay, Google Pay, and then there's a pay link as well in there, which actually a lot of people choose to do over ordering and charging to their room. I think it's kind of our customer profile. They'd rather just pay for it there and then.
Mhm.
Um, and it makes it very simple for them, so they don't actually have any surprises at checkout. They've already
Yeah,
paid for those couple of cocktails whenever they're at the hot tub. And I think that guests engage with it really well. Sometimes it's curiosity. So,
yeah,
they're sitting in a pool and they see the little QR code there and they're like, I wonder what this does. And once you hover over it, you're like, oh, I can get drinks. Like you can bring
yeah,
me these drinks all the way here. Again, in that picture, the bar is like 4 or 5 steps away, but people like the thought of someone bringing that service to them.
definitely. I know I've checked out
Mhm.
personally, and my bill is definitely not the number that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah,
convenience of
you
something like
can.
this.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we use the Guest X platform quite heavily, mostly in our spa areas. And I think that that's where it works best for us. We are sort of luxury properties, and that style of service doesn't really suit our restaurants. So we like it when you're in the restaurant that a server greets you and offers that style of service. Um, and the other option that we have then would be across, if I know the slide there says sort of in-room dining, but it's more a concept of like a takeaway style service. So I think I mentioned earlier on some of our accommodations are on the grounds of the resort. They are like forest dens and shepherd's huts and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, and those guests sort of go to stay all day in the spa and then they go back to their accommodation and they really didn't want to have to get dressed for dinner and sit in the restaurant and be presentable, if you like, when they had really nice accommodation there. So sometimes they were ordering like a takeout or something from somewhere else.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that in the picture is one of our forest stands and they have their own spa experience there as well. So yeah, as I said, the guests they didn't want to come all the way back over to the hotel. They just wanted to stay where they are. So we implemented the Guest X tool in those accommodations so we could service the food and beverage offering over to them. And that's been really successful as well.
Gotcha. Now you did touch base on one thing about guest curiosity of using the platform or how you got
Hmm.
it convinced, not convinced, but how you exposed that to the guest. What did you
Hmm.
notice that changed first? Guest behavior in ordering or did a spike in revenue?
Um, I think we were quite surprised actually by the uptake of it. As I said, it was really new to us, and also at the time we didn't use the Stripe payment gateway for anything else. We have used
Hmm.
GetX for quite a few years now. Um, and at the time we didn't use Stripe, and by comparison to our other payment platform, the fees were quite high. But we thought we'll give it a go and see what it produces. And actually, we were really surprised by the volume came through on it. So. Um, we added more QR codes in more locations. And I think, yeah, there's some stats there on the screen, which even surprised me because I wasn't 100% sure, but Jason pulled these for me last week. Yeah, so 2025 was 1.5 million in guest X revenue across our four hotels. Um, and that comes from over 100,000 orders across the collection.
Yeah,
And we're
so
on
that's
track for that. We're on track for that this year as well.
definitely. So that is revenue that was potentially lost because the
Hmm.
guest either wasn't getting,
Yeah,
somebody reached out to them, they didn't want to get out of the hot tub, or they just didn't have a way to order.
exactly. And on top of that as well, it's the staff service. So some of those are quite close to the bar, but we don't have to actually have a member of staff constantly sort of circulating in that area. So it frees them up to maybe actually do the waiter service so we can actually have less feet on the ground in those areas. So there's a couple of different benefits there to it.
Definitely. So you're increasing revenue by guests being able to order quickly, but also saving your labor costs because you don't
Hmm.
necessarily have to have as many staffing out there. So that I
Yeah,
see where that can be both hand in hand and super beneficial.
yeah. Hmm.
Do you notice a certain spike, a time of year, or something that might trigger, or ways that additional customers could see benefits of this
Hmm.
based on time of year or seasonal type of
Yeah.
usage?
Um, we're very fortunate that Galgorm is about 95% occupied year round, so it stays quite steady there. And as I said, we don't have the best climate here in Northern Ireland. We tend to get a lot of rain, but people are quite happy to sit in the spa experiences. But some of our other areas where we use guest X, are more seasonal, and that would be sort of like our outdoor gardens. And around we've literally just added it in across the driving range at one of our golf properties. So that is relatively new, and it gets used a little bit more in the summertime as well. So we're interested to see how that goes.
Definitely. So you're finding different ways to utilize it that,
Hmm.
can be in different spots in your properties. That's a wonderful.
Hmm.
So from the guest perspective, walk me through how simple is it? How do you find, have you gotten any feedback of
Hmm.
what the guests are saying about getting from start to finish, getting placing their order to getting their order? What's that like?
Yeah. So it's really simple. We have little like acrylic style discs. They're just branded with our logo at the top. They're like a coaster size, and we have them at the location where the guests would like to order. And we name them a location. So we name like our hot tubs. They have like a name rather than a number, but you could use a number.
Mhm.
And that's how we know where the order has to go to then when the check comes through to dispense. Goes right through to the thermal printer, or if you're using kitchen, if it's not just drinks, then it'll head into the kitchen, and the staff just produces it like they would a normal order that comes from a workstation, and it's delivered out there. As I said, our guests sort of habitually pay on order. There are very, very few people who actually would charge back to their room. So it is more frequent that the check is pretty much already closed before the item is delivered, which really helps without having to go backwards and forwards to take payment. Then again, saves that little bit of labor as well. Um, I think the only tricky bit that we sometimes encounter with our guests is if they have a Google default browser on their phone, it
Hmm.
pushes them to Google Pay, and they really want Apple Pay if they're used to being Apple users. But our staff are pretty well versed in that now. If anyone's having any problems with that, or there's the iLink Pay through the Stripe
Hmm.
portal as well that they can use. So it doesn't come up very often, and certainly the stats wouldn't signal that there's any issues with how simple it's been to use.
Now, what did you learn on keeping it simple? What
Mhm.
stood out?
I think, yeah, it's really important to not have too many menu items on there. And I think that's why it works better in our scenarios over maybe using it in a restaurant that has a really large menu. Because we have to remember that the guests are looking at this on a pretty small screen on their phone.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you give too many options, then they find it hard. They can't choose one.
Yeah.
Um, so I think keeping it simple has definitely meant it's much easier for the guests to use. And then in our like takeaway service area, it keeps that menu simple as well because it's not a full scale kitchen like we would have in some of our restaurants. It's a separate service kitchen from there. Um, and it also helps whenever we're configuring the screens to keep something nice and simple um, for the design.
Gotcha. And I'm sure the guests love it.
Mhm.
Ordering from a simple menu, their
Yeah.
food or drinks can be made very quickly and they get it in their hand, which is probably surprising to them how
Hmm.
quickly they can get it and they will get
Yeah.
it consumed and they're ready for their next. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Absolutely.
Great thought process on that. Walk me through the rollout, because Galgorm Collection, as you mentioned, is multiple properties. We started
Hmm.
with one and we've kind of rolled it out across the others. Walk me through what that process was like for you and any challenges or lessons learned that we took from property to property.
Yeah, I think obviously the first one was obviously the most difficult because we didn't actually know what we were doing. And a bit of trial and error. As I said, we started quite small. We probably had about four hot tubs by the river. You sort of maybe see just in the background there, and sort of four hot tubs at the back. I believe they were our first guest X use. So we built beverage only. We didn't want to go too difficult with what we had in there and kept it quite small. And we just had eight little location QR codes across those guest experiences. And in time, like the staff did get used to it. And again, the back of house staff as well got used to the configuration of it. So the first one was obviously a bit more difficult. And now we have, I think, maybe 15 different experiences that were built so easily and internally. And we rarely have very many issues with trying to add on one for ourselves anymore. Um, I think some of the things on screen there that I mentioned is deciding your payment gateway and getting that configured and remembering to toggle on the Apple Pay so the Apple Pay option is there. It's just something that you wouldn't know unless you came up against it. Getting everyone to buy into the fact that it is a really useful tool and actually just testing it out in one of those smaller areas. I think you can really see what the benefit would be.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that we did it that way because it proved to us it was worth those higher costs of the payment
Mhm.
gateway because it was revenue that we didn't have. We weren't selling any drinks to those people realistically.
Mhm.
Um, and now we can see what the value of it was. So it's been really useful to do it that way and get everyone on board.
Wonderful. Now, tell me who is the ideal or who is this best suited for, the ideal customer? Who's going to use this the best, or who's going to be the quickest, or who have you seen pick
Um, yeah, I think somewhere similar to ourselves. I guess it all depends on your style of service. If that's the type of customer that you might have, or if they're really like, I want to have a person beside me to order from. But having the large estate properties where people can maybe go away, I don't know, maybe you might have like gardens or something like that people like to sit and read in, or like relax areas where realistically they're like, oh, like even a tea would be nice sitting over here, but I don't want to get up. I've got this really nice lounger or comfy chair, or I'm in this hot tub. Um, but I like something. I think those areas are the ones that do really well. And again, you don't have to have a staff member maybe on patrol. It throws it seems very like they're always like watching out for you, but it's sort of like someone is there, but there is no one there at the same time. So I think anywhere you think there's like revenue in those little corners where people are sitting relaxing and have a look at those areas, I think is a good place to start.
Gotcha. Now, if I was, say, a new property and I was considering the guest X experience, where do you think someone should start if they're thinking about this? What would be a good tipping point as a small property and
Mhm.
scale?
Where they should start,
Yeah.
where they should um
Or
I
any
think
tips for a starter?
yeah, I think maybe talk to someone who has already implemented that is a really good idea. So I think this webinar is a good idea. And see what the successes has been for them. Maybe start in like a smaller restaurant with a simple menu, or have like someone at Silverware help you set it up and test it with your team internally, because the link is not, well, it can be live, but it's only live if you share it with someone. So you can go in and set it up and build it and test it with your team and do test orders and things in there and see if you like it from the guest experience side before you implement it and make it customer facing. I think it's a good test.
Definitely. And I've also had some sites want to use this as an internal process for their
Mhm.
staff ordering if they don't have,
Yeah,
say, a staff canteen. um, they can create it so their staff can order menus so that they can
yeah,
enjoy their break a little bit. So there's different ways
that's
than
really
just using it
useful.
with the
Yeah.
guest.
We do
Which
actually use it for our staff as well,
oh,
on
wonderful.
that takeaway service, because we offered a discounted rate for our own team members if they want
Yeah,
to order something. So, we do have a separate experience link for that, and the staff members use that to get their discount as well, which is great.
wonderful. That gives them a quick way to order something if they're on a short
Yeah.
break, if you guys are busy.
Hmm.
So that's speeding it up, and it's helping your team out a little bit as well.
Yeah.
That's
Good.
wonderful. So tell me what's next for the Galgorm collection. Where do you see yourself going? What's coming down the pipeline? What new exciting things are you guys up to?
Well, our most recent properties that we purchased, we about 18 months ago. Two of them are golf courses, which is really new for our collection. So, um, one of the areas we have just put guest X into, and the team in that hotel have not used it at all yet. So they're definitely still getting used to that. And we've put that in on the driving range at those bays in the driving range to generate some food and beverage revenue in those areas. Um, and the next process would to be do it at the second golf course. And also, with it coming into sort of better golfing season at the halfway hut at Galgorm Castle Golf Course, we have like a silverware station going in there in the next couple of weeks. But ideally, don't really know how we're going to manage this, but ideally we would have some QRs around the course so that people could order for their order to be ready for them at the halfway hut when they reach it. So they're like drinks or food or something like that. So that's next on the agenda for us.
That's great. Yeah, it's golfing through. Say I'm at hole number 4 and I need
Yeah,
a cocktail because I'm not doing great right now. Well, that's
definitely.
great.
That's the
I
plan.
love how that you've taken this product and your ideas and gone in different directions. It's not necessarily for in-room dining. It's not necessarily for the
Mm,
pool. You're finding different avenues that it can be used for internally, which is a great mindset in a way that you want your business to expand. So
yeah.
I applaud you and your team for that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's been really useful for us and really interesting to see how we've been able to grow it into the different properties. And as the business gets bigger as well, just finding more opportunities to use it. So it's a great tool.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that brings us close to the end of our slides. I do have it open for questions. If anybody does have a question, feel free to put it into our um, question panel and we will happily answer that. If you do not have any questions, we want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're hoping that this is a wonderful experience for you to learn a little bit more about some of our partners here at Silverware, some of our products here at Silverware, and we hope to maybe be able to continue this and provide information to anybody and everybody that wants to join. A big thank you from myself personally, because I know Miss Kelly for, you know,
Mhm.
as long as I've been at Silverware, and I know the team at Silverware wants to thank you as well for spending
Thank
this
you.
time with us, talking about your business, and sharing your good graces. So we'll give it a couple minutes for anybody that has any questions. Feel free to pop it in. You can always reach out to your customer success representative, your sales representative, implementations representative at Silverware. If you have any questions about anything at Silverware, please do not hesitate to reach out. We're always here to help you. Our help desk is also available 24/7. So please, thank you guys so much for anyone and everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. And um, we do have a question. Is Stripe the only one that integrates with it? Stripe is our partner in the United Kingdom that integrates with our GuestX experience at this time. I know there was some discussions about possibly adding additional ones in the future, but as of right now, Stripe is the only one in the UK area. And thank you, Mr. Jelly. So we have a question. Employees using GuestX, you said, get a discount. Is this discount automatically applied, or is the employee choosing the discount? How do you have it set up?
We actually have it set up as it's a reduced cost to them rather than having to go through and put in a discount code through the GuestX portal, which is a bit more fiddly for them to do. So we just overall reduce the cost of it. So they've got their own link and their own experience to order from. So it's their own menu technically. The takeaway service isn't our staff canteen or anything like that, but sometimes people will order for their family on their way home from work, something to take home like that. So they get the reduced cost on that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we have an initial question. We work at a private club where members can charge their membership tied to their payments account. Can charging to membership accounts work as well since they are not directly charging to Apple Pay or Google Pay? So that one I can handle a little bit. We do integrate to multiple different club management systems and or property management systems that you can send charges to. I know Maestro is a good PMS that we integrate to Opera, Club Automation, Daxco. There's quite a few different products. So I would highly suggest maybe reaching out to your sales rep or whoever you're working with at Silverware to extend that conversation a little bit more and go from there. But yes, there's multiple different property management systems or automated systems that we can send charges to. It's just based on what integration there is. This one I'll pass to you, Miss Kelly. Can you have different menus for different locations?
Yes, yes. So I guess we call them experiences, but we sort of refer to them as revenue centers as well. So we've got lots of different garden areas around our spa. So we'll have one that we call the Alpine Garden. So anyone that orders on that QR code, they get their drinks from a certain bar. So we have a different menu for them. Um, the takeaway service, which you saw the picture of, we call the Woodpecker. So it's its own experience. It's got its own URL and its own menu items. And all of those setups, then we configure the direction of the printer as well. So which dispense printer we want, which bar, which kitchen that order goes to. And that's probably why we have so many, because the different areas need different service teams.
Definitely, and I can expand a little bit more on that one because I was involved with some of your setups.
Mhm.
So you have experiences that are within revenue centers, but the way you have it set up is you also want to know how much revenue is coming in from that experience versus that revenue center.
Mhm.
So at Silverware in your setup, we can create cost centers. We'll call it the woodpecker, which is your in-store, in-building ordering, but then your QR code might be the woodpecker QR ordering, so that in the Silverware reporting, you can see that separation. But when it's posting to your property management system, they're both running through that same posting code. So the guest doesn't know it's different, but in your reporting, you can see that different.
Mhm.
Question. I understand that you suggest that the menu should remain small. Do you see that a range of items that you can suggest, or what would be the max items that you would want people to choose from?
I think it depends on the area that you're in. Like if you want to use it in a restaurant or if you want to use it in an outdoor area. Um, I always think myself, if I was the customer, would I feel overwhelmed with what I'm choosing from a tiny screen in front of me? Um, Things like, for example, on the driving range, we're probably going to keep it quite simple with beers, wines, maybe a few cocktails, and like things like snacks, like wings or burgers or something like that. Um, and in our spa areas, we very much stick to like cocktails, fizzy wines,
Mhm.
bubbles, prosecco, things that people like to drink, like the most popular items in there. And like, for example, I wouldn't have your entire bar of 10, 15 bottled beers because you don't need it and you don't want to stock it. Anyway, so I'd say put the best sellers that you have on there is probably a good place to start. And guests will sometimes give you feedback as well. You know, if you have a Corona on there and they're like, oh, I really would like a Coors, and if you hear it 20 times, then you know you got to put the Coors on. So I think a bit of trial and error on that, but I would still recommend to um keep it concise, I suppose, so that it looks better on the phone where people are trying to
Definitely.
order.
And I always thought when I was explaining it to guests or customers, I always suggest what are things that you can make really quickly because you want to surprise the guests and get that food or drink to them really fast because then that's gonna, oh my goodness, look how fast I got this. I'm gonna be ready to order another one shortly, and I know it's gonna come really quickly. But
Mhm.
also to kind of spin off a little bit on that, touch base on how easy it is to change your menu. If you want to do different menu items month to month
Mhm.
or add or remove an item, that's kind of something that ties a little bit onto that.
Yeah. No, it's as I said, it's really easy to configure. Like we have all the access to do that, so we can change menu items, and likewise we can change the prices whenever we need to as well. So, it's really simple to take something off if it's not working, or if you want to operate seasonally, you can just jump in and change the menu item on there for something that you think might be more successful during a summer season than a winter season. It's
Perfect.
definitely useful. And we do have, very fortunate that we have one of our employees is our silverware guru, and she
Mhm.
manages a lot of that, which is good for us.
Yes, wonderful. It's always good to have a champion that knows
Yeah,
it in and out that can kind of push through it really quickly for you.
yeah.
Wonderful. But we'll give a couple more minutes here for any follow-up questions that might pop in. Um, And then if we don't have any in the next couple minutes, then I would think we're pretty safe to go. And once again, thank you again for joining. Thank everyone for joining as spectators. Um, as well, we really appreciate your time spending with us this morning or afternoon if you're across the pond.
Yeah.
All right, we didn't have any pop in. Once again, thank you guys again for all joining. Thank you, Miss Elaine Kelly, for your time with
Thank
us.
you.
Um, I'm gonna have to come over and visit you pretty soon, so
Absolutely.
all right, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for joining, and we really do hope to do this again very soon.
Thank you.